Welcome back, everybody. This is Cliff again with another episode of Boot Camp for Combat. Want to continue with vehicles today and move on to the tanks, the armored fighting vehicles. There's only two kinds so far in combat: the Sherman M4A3s and the Panzer IVs. There are markers for others. We could have the Easy 8 Sherman, and I think there's some Panzer Vs hiding in there, and I'm sure more armor will eventually be developed. If they don't, I will. So want to compare and contrast this with what we've already covered with Jeeps and trucks and half-tracks. The two main differences introduced by the tanks are the crew is much bigger and more complex. These tanks have a crew of 5, so there's specialization where we get the different functions of the vehicle assigned to different people. And the tanks have lousy fields of view, very restricted fields of view, which are going to impact spotting and LOS in general. So I'm going to walk through the same way I did before. We're going to start with all vehicles have display mats. And the tanks do too. So our M4A3 tank mat and our Panzer IV tank mat has everything we need on it. Information about the weapons, lots of armor to consider, armor values for the different facings, and lots more damage that can be taken. We have our main guns, and then we have ancillary machine guns, which include a coax up on the turret, a forward hull machine gun. These are MG34s for the German, M1919 30 cals for the American. All right. The crew, 5-member crew. We draw them out of the crew panels like before. So the Americans, you go to your crew, you draw out a random crew. You need a driver and a co-driver, a gunner, a loader, and a commander. And then we can just assign those to Sherman A. Likewise, the Germans will get a driver, a co-driver, a gunner, a loader, a commander. We'll put those in Panzer A. There they are in their positions. The display mat gives us the counter to put on the board. Once again, the little red arrow is the direction with front, rear, sides. Just like all the other vehicles. The crew members have TQ values and not weapon skill. They're going to use their TQ values, and the leader is the only one who has a weapon if he gets out of the vehicle to defend himself with this little pistol. And he's got a leadership value. Hauser here is a 2, which would help with morale checks. It doesn't do much else. All right. Vehicle initiative. The Americans, when they have an M4, are going to get an initiative card. So we'll go to our hand. To get his initiative, and they use able. If you have one tank, you use able. If you have 2 tanks, you'd use able and then Baker. So 22. And on the turn track, we have special counters now for the M4A3 A tank. And it would go wherever it needs to go. Likewise, the German would draw a card for his initiative, and his initiative is 53. And you'd use that to position his. I don't need this anymore. position his marker, Panzer 4A, wherever it goes. But in addition, this 53 is going to be used to help determine the commander's orders. Just like the truck driver got his orders from the initiative card for the truck, the commander gets his initiative card, his order from the initiative for the vehicle. So we keep track of that. When we activate a tank in initiative order, the different members of the crew act in a specific order, and it's listed here at the top of the cards. Greg put that in for us. So the commander is first, followed by the driver, followed by the gunner, followed by the loader, followed by the co-driver. We can give whatever orders we want to our guys. Our crew can either be buttoned up or have their hatches open. We have 4 hatches here. The commander can either be popped open or closed. I like my commander out so you can see what's going on. Your co-driver can be open or closed. Your driver can be open or closed, and your loader here can be open or closed. The gunner doesn't have a hatch to open or close, so he's always buttoned up. If you're out in the open, you get better visibility, but you're now susceptible to getting shot at with aim fire. We'll talk about that. So the commander is first, and you can give him various orders. He can button up, he can spot, he can direct fire. Spotting will help him to spot other soldiers, enemy soldiers. Direct fire will allow him to give a bonus to the firing of other crew members with their weapons. Mount up is to get on the tank if he's not in it already. Relocate allows him to move to a different position in the tank to occupy an empty space if somebody was killed. Usually your commander is not going to relocate. After that, the next person up is the driver. The driver has all those orders to button up, spot, bail out, relocate, but he also has all the move orders for the tank. These movement orders are the same ones that we use for the other vehicles. So once again, you have to declare if you're going to crawl, you're going to crawl 2, 3 for that turn or whatever. You have to declare your movement, and the movement, the faster you move, the more penalties there are to firing by other members. The driver can't fire. After the driver is the gunner, the shooter dude. He can fire either the main gun or he can fire his machine gun. The gunner runs the coax, which is on the turret. It fires the same direction that the barrel is pointed on the main gun. He can rapid fire, aim fire, or suppress fire. Or he can fire the main gun if it is loaded. Speaking of loading, the loader is next. He has all the typical orders, plus he's got load high explosives or load armor piercing. So you can tell him to load the main gun, and when he does so, you can flip this, load, and you can say whether you're loading high explosive or armor piercing. To load the gun, he's got to pass TQ. Here. One moment. Okay, I'm back again. Sorry, little interruption. So, we're talking about loader. The loading here, we got a black, and then these golden zeros, and then a red zero. When you got load HE or load AP, you can't do anything on impulse 1, but in impulse 2 or 3, if he passes a TQ, he can load the main gun. You're guaranteed to be able to load it on impulse 4. When we are firing the main gun, you see that it's got a 0, a 1, a 1, and a red 1. That means that impulse 1, you can't fire the main gun. 1, or impulse 2 or 3, if you pass a TQ, you can fire the main gun. And then 4, you're guaranteed to fire it. So if you start with it loaded in impulse 1, on impulse 2, if he manages to pass his TQ check, the gunner could fire on impulse 2. On impulse 3, if the loader managed to pass his TQ check, he could reload the gun, and then on impulse 4, the gunner's guaranteed to fire again. So if your crew is really efficient, they can get off 2 rounds with the main gun in a turn. If they're not so efficient, they should be able to at least get off 1 round. And then the co-driver. The co-driver, he's like a spare. You can reposition him to cover spots that have people who've died, or he can run this bow machine gun here. So he can lay down machine gun fire in the forward direction. That's the only direction that thing can see. Or you could reposition. If you do reposition people to cover people who've been incapacitated or killed, there is a -2 modifier to their TQ checks, because while they're cross-trained, they're not absolutely interchangeable. So when you do fire, you just flip this off to remove. Well, let's not do that. I would just flip it. Fire. And then you load it. And then you fire it. There you go. So that's them. Movement, already covered with the driver. Movement is like normal with the tank. Trees are not impassable for a tank. They can mow those down, but they have to crawl in trees, just like half track. When we're giving orders over here with the German side, same story, but we don't get to pick. Instead, we use numbers, initiative numbers. So 53 would be the commander's number, and you have to look up what that is. That is in the vehicle order matrix. Matrix B is for the drivers. Matrix A is for everybody else. So the order depends upon whether you're buttoned up or not, and whether you have a spotting marker, whether you've spotted enemy soldiers or not. So there's 4 possibilities. For the commander here, our 53 would be spot if he's no target buttoned up. 53 would be spot for no target open. 53 would be direct fire if we were buttoned up and saw a target, and 53 would be if we were open and saw a target. He would be directing fire. So let's say that we have a target in view. Then his order would be direct fire. Now you have to draw a card for each of the others. So the driver, gunner, loader, co-driver, they each draw their own card. I'm going to leave this down here. There. Get this out of the way. So the driver is going to get this card. And then the gunner, which is over here, loader, and co-driver. They each get their numbers, and they all look them up on the corresponding spot. So the driver with the 19 would use vehicle matrix A with it. Come on. I can do this. I really can. I want vehicle matrix B for the driver. Come on. There. And if the commander has a target in view, everybody knows there's a target. And our driver's buttoned up. He's a 19, which makes him a spot and halt. So this guy is just going to be spotting. That halts the tank. Likewise, you look up 13, 99, 55. Give them their orders each time. So you have to draw cards. Let's talk spotting. The visibility from these tanks is pretty poor. If you're buttoned up, then there's going to be very, very restricted fields of view. While everybody's buttoned up, let's button everybody up. Everybody's buttoned up. The driver and co-driver can only see forward in the direction that the hull is facing. So the forward direction up here. Do I have this active? Let's give me a line. Arrow. Yeah. Forward in this area. The loader and gunner can see forward as well in the direction that the turret is facing. It is possible to turn the turret on these tanks. If the turret is turned, let's turn it to the right. Now the turret has its own marker and forward is over here for those guys. The commander has 360 field of view with this command cupola. If we unbutton everybody, we open this up. And this one. Now the driver can see forward and left. And the co-driver can see forward and right. The loader can see forward and left off of the turret. Gunner forward and right off of the turret. And the commander, once again, 360 degree field of view. If you're open, there's no penalty for spotting enemy soldiers. We need to be able to spot soldiers in order to shoot at them. So let's say we have our tank and he's sitting. Oh, let me move this out of the way. The building's going to be in the way there. I'm going to turn him around. So let me turn this guy. So he's over here. He's facing this way toward these trees. And I'm going to turn that turret back. I wanted to turn the turret. I think I want to turn it left. There. So everybody's facing forward toward these trees. We want to spot an enemy in these trees. And just get somebody. There. Stick somebody in these trees. We want to spot him. Doesn't matter if he's already spotted. We need to actually acquire him through our viewports or through our hatches and get a target marker on him. Unlike the jeeps, trucks, and half-tracks, our crew now have to get a spotting marker on a character in order to shoot at him. And we do this in spotting order, with the commander trying first. He has to pass a TQ. His hatch is open, so he's got a 5. If he had an order to spot, that gives him a +1. That makes it 6. Our range makes it 7. And he is, oh, let's say aim, fire, and trees, which is a -2. He needs a 5. And he rolls a 2. He spots him. And the commander will now place a spotting marker on him. Place target marker. That means now that everybody will be aware that there's an enemy soldier in the vicinity, and that will affect what order they get in the future. Now the next person who needs to spot is the driver, and he does it the same way. If the driver happens to be buttoned up, he's a 5, -2 for being closed, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2. Does not. And then we go to our gunner, and he tries. It is only when our people actually get, well, driver can spot just fine, but he doesn't have a spotting marker. Not everybody has a spotting marker because he can't shoot. All he's doing is driving. He can spot. So if there was like a hidden soldier, he could spot him. Yay. And also, I need to point out that once the commander marker is on here, if there's another person who's got a target marker on, we don't get this -2 modifier anymore. Forgot that. So the driver wouldn't have the -2. So he would have been 5. No minus. 6, 5, 4. He would have spotted if he needed to. After the driver is the gunner. We got our gunner here, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4. Let's say we get a marker on there. These guys can spot the same or different people. It's only when the gunner has a target marker on there that he can shoot in subsequent turns. Then if he had a fire order, fire main, he could fire the main gun at that soldier and try to pulverize him. Or if he was instead of fire main, we could remove that. Remove. Fire order, MG rapid fire. He could get a fire order and fire. So firing we talked about a little bit with the main gun. With the machine guns here, he could fire rapid fire all 3 times. He gets a -3 because he doesn't have an assistant. And he gets low ammo on a single 9, just like any machine gun firing without an assistant. So if he was firing there, he uses his TQ, which is 4. And then the 1919 had a range of 2. Is +2, 5, 6. And then -2 for being aim fire in the trees, 5, 4. And he gets 4 shots for 4. And he tried to perforate him. And he got a low ammo for his trouble. That's how I usually roll. So the main gun you can fire the machine guns. Everybody needs to spot. There's a -2 spotting if your hatch is closed, unless somebody else has got a target marker on there. If your tank rotates so that that is now not in your field of view anymore, these target markers are lost. If the soldier moves, the target marker can move with them 1 hex. If it's still in LOS, you can move your target marker along. so it could follow him over if it's still in LOS. There is a priority for spotting, especially for like the Germans. As an American, you can choose where you're going to put your stuff. If you decide you want to move it all together to a different spot, you just have to pass your TQ and you can move it. The German is always going to spot enemy armor. Spotting enemy armor is automatic. They're not subtle. If you have LOS to enemy armor, it's spotted. No question. And that is going to be the highest priority to put your spotting markers, because everybody wants to take out the opposing armor. The next most favored place to put your target markers is on an enemy light anti-tank weapon crew. So if you have got a bazooka team, the enemy armor will try to target your Sherman first. If they can't see the Sherman, the next thing they'll try for is that bazooka team. After that, they'll try to put their target marker on the spot that has the most adjacent contiguous enemy opposing soldiers, Americans in our case. So if there was a cluster of 3 spotted soldiers, that would be the priority for placing the marker. The least priority is a single spotted soldier. Alright, so firing from the vehicle, yeah, we fire our machine guns. We fire our main gun. We got our loader loading the gun, the gunner shooting the cannon. Firing at the vehicle. Enemy soldiers that have an aim fire order. So if I give this guy an aim fire order, he can fire at any crew member that's in an open hatch. They can target those guys. Their heads are sticking out, their shoulders are sticking out. You have to have an aim fire order at somebody with an open hatch if you're all buttoned up. Small arms, like those KAR-98s, are not going to do squat against a tank. They won't even try to shoot at you. You're not a target. If you're going to try to take out a tank, you got to have some penetrating power. So you need a weapon with penetration. And the first thing they'll have to do is roll to hit your tank. And you'll roll to hit the tank using the typical order terrain matrix. We got our vehicle movement orders, and we've got the various terrains it could be in, less the ones that are impassable. So you got your to hit marker. If they manage to roll a hit with a weapon that has penetration, they will next need to go to another table, hit locations. You look at your hit locations to determine how much armor you're facing with that shot. You got front facing if you're shooting from the front, if you're shooting from the sides, or if you're shooting at the rear of the tank. And you have to roll a D100. So we roll our D100 and we get a 41, and say we're shooting from the side, a 41, lower hull hit. Use glancing value with an asterisk. Lower hull hit means we need to look up with the asterisk a sublocation. We'll have to determine penetration first. So our armor value on the side of the Sherman, yeah, I'm all muddled up here. The side, lower hull, side, upper lower hull, side, glancing value is 6. So they need a penetration of 6. And if it were the German tank, if the German tank firing at us, then his penetration value is a 9 plus a d6, so somewhere between 10 and 15. Yeah, that's going to penetrate. Getting shot at from the side by a Panzer IV is never very fun. Alright, and then we have to check out our damage side. Here. Yes, we have our side here. We got our values for our lower hull hit. We have to roll a d10 to see what happens. And I roll our d10 and I get a 2. It's a lower hull hit from the side with a 2. It means that nobody dies. The filled circles are dead. But everybody has to take a morale check. That's what the all means. Don't see any other damage going on here. It's just that we got our bell rung and everybody's got to take a morale check. So here we got a morale check of 5. Passes. Now he can apply his morale to the other morale checks. Driver's next, 7. Passes. Gunner. Gunner is a 4-6. Passes. Loader is a 4-6. Passes. And the co-driver is a 6. Passes. Everybody passes their morale check. If they would fail and they have an open hatch, then they would duck back. I wonder if I can just duck back. If they have a closed hatch and they fail, then they're going to panic. I'm trying to remember where this is. Not there. Not fire orders. Other orders. Nope. Morale. No panic there. Other. Visibility. Route. Panic. Yeah. Panic does the same thing as duck back. It's just panic is what happens when your hatches are closed. Alright, I should point out that if we're taking fire from small arms and we have hatches open, the commander can be hit from any direction, just like he has LOS to any direction. The loader and the co-driver are hit from the right arc or the front, and the driver is hit from the left arc or the front. You can't hit the gunner because the gunner doesn't have a hatch. He can't be out and hit. So our damage is derived after penetration. So the order is you're fired at by some sort of an anti-tank weapon with penetrating ability. Small arms can only hit people in open hatches. Determine, are you hit? Step 1. If no, wipe your brow, move on. If yes, then we must determine where you were hit, and if you were penetrated, and finally what the damage was. So if you're hit, determine location by rolling here with the facing, and it'll determine what part of the tank is hit. Like you're hit in the track 23, 24, that's going to immobilize you. You don't have to look further. You're done. It's only when you have an asterisk that we have to go further. We have to have penetration too. Hit, penetration, damage. Some are really bad. Some not so bad. Any other orders? Let's see. If we get to the point where our commander here panics, he's routed, takes hits, and he gets like a light wound. So let's give him a light wound. He got hit in his open hatch, and he failed his wound morale check with a 9, which means he goes down to rout. When the commander routs, everybody routs. Everybody bails out. They don't rout, they bail out. So at this point, he's going to be routing. He's going to be, at first, he's going to be ducked back and hiding, but he's in the subsequent turns going to be bailing out. Even though this is a perfectly good tank, he will bail out. Where's my bail? Mount up, button up, panic. They're going to bail out. Not that. Other orders. Bail. When everybody bails out, they all wait until turn impulse 3, they move to the top of the tank, and then on impulse 4 they move away from the tank. If they get rallied up, it's theoretically possible they could move back to that functional tank and try to mount up again. That's never happened in my experience. So the gist of this is the tanks are very much like the other vehicles. The main difference is they have to use those targeting markers to target before they can actually shoot at somebody. In order to target, they have to pass their TQ check. So I'm going to basically wrap up here, I think. Spotting is just a little more complicated. Once you have your markers down, blast away. I find it's best to keep tanks still while you're shooting to improve your accuracy and to not lose your target markers all the time. If you're trying to weave around 2-3-2-3, the bow of the tank keeps changing direction. You keep losing your spots. It's very annoying. It's better just to focus on getting your tank up into a firing position, stopping, putting your driver onto spot, getting fire commands on everybody else, and blast away in support of your infantry. Tanks are surprisingly fragile, so it's wise to keep a bunch of infantry nearby to protect them from the nasty opposing infantry. I hope this helped somewhat. I don't play tanks enough to get really comfortable with this, but this is my best understanding. Let me know if I got anything wrong. And we'll talk about light anti-tank weapons next time. I'll see you then.